Okay, here we are, Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press, here in Foley Square at the Southern District of New York Courthouse, also the Second Circuit. But we'll get to that in a moment. On the Trump docket, yesterday, after Team Trump filed an appeal to the Second Circuit of Judge Hellerstein's denial of their motion to remove the state criminal case against Trump sent before sentencing to the federal courts, Team Trump put in a request to Judge Hellerstein himself to stay his own order. We'll have to see how that's going to work out. Meanwhile, supposedly, it's reported that tomorrow Trump will be right here, upstairs there, on the 17th floor of 40 Foley Square, where at 10 a.m. the argument in the appeal of the E. Jean Carroll case will be heard. I'm finding it hard to believe because we're now 24 hours out and I'm not seeing any kind of barricades going up. Maybe NYPD knows something that we don't know. Although I'm told that yesterday there were federal officials, we won't get into which agency, checking out the courtroom and kicking the tires. And there's a lot of talk over here about how to cover it. We're going to cover it one way or another, whether Trump's there or not there. That's how we're going to cover the substance of that appeal, whether the damages award was excessive, given the tweets. But that's that. What else can we say? Oh, yesterday in this same building, on the 13th floor, we'll try to get that window in there, we covered the, it's a strange case, Team Kennedy versus the State of New York Board of Elections and individuals on it. Basically, RFK and Team Kennedy want to get RFK's name back on the ballot. He was on the ballot. He had enough signatures. There's a dispute about the New York home address that he put in. But they cited, Team Kennedy that is, they cited a case of John Anderson, a previous independent candidate, who, although his signatures to Ohio were 2 months late, the Supreme Court said, no, there's a federal interest in having him on these elections being open, and states, unless they have an overriding interest, can't ban it. Seemed pretty persuasive. The arguments went on and on. We live tweeted them. You can find them. Wrote an article, wrote some analysis on Substack, but we're on alert for that one. It doesn't. Some people think it's strange, but it was explained that it makes a difference to independent parties. If you stay on the ballot and get a certain thresholds, then you can get on next time without having to go through the rigmarole. What was pointed out is that New York State might be the only state with only 2 presidential candidates on. There's a lot of other people running. Of course, they may or may not have a lot of chances, but why would New York State be the most obstreperous in terms of independent people being on the ballot? That was the question. What else can we say? Also in the Second Circuit, for some non-Trump news, Internet Archive appealed a loss that it had for publishing books in full. Hachette and other publishers went after them. Hachette is one, sadly. Internet Archive, described as a nonprofit, is told to stop doing it. It's a copyright case. There's all information wants to be free. There's a lot of ways to see it. Even as an author, I'm not sure I'm going to side with Hachette on that one, but that the court has spoken. We'll see if they take it up further. Let's turn to the United Nations before we end up. In fact, there's one connecting piece here, which is that Antonio Guterres, he's in China now, and I'll get to that. He's been sucking up to Xi Jinping and the Belt and Road Project. It's amazing. He's gone away for 2 weeks in the middle of all this. Somehow the compliant in-house press at the UN report that he's deeply concerned. He hasn't been seen in weeks. And his most recent quote is that he's so honored to be with Xi, talking about the Belt and Road, which is basically a debt peonage plan in Africa and elsewhere. But he was supposed to do a press conference, his pre-high-level week press conference on September 18th inside the UN. Yesterday, spokesman Stefan Dujarric looked into the camera and said, we're going to move it up a few days because we've heard that there's some conflicting news on September 18th, and he laughed. That's the sentencing of Trump. So now we're at a situation where the UN is going to do everything possible for massive coverage of that sentencing while Guterres is slobbering up in Beijing. It's shocking. We've applied to re-enter. We've had Quinn Emanuel and Dwayne Morris both write letters to Melissa Fleming. She's an American person, an American personage that runs a UN media accreditation. She hasn't even answered letters from 2 law firms pro bono about the First Amendment because the UN doesn't care about the First Amendment. They just care about propagandizing for Big Tony and their various other projects, including the Summit of the Future. But more on that anon. Inner City Press, we're going into the courts. To be continued.